CEO discovers Maid's daughter in tears over a broken toy. His inspiring action changed everything. Mike Henderson strode through his lavish home, the glow of chandeliers casting shadows over the accolades that lined the grand foyer. With each step, an insistent emptiness tightened around his chest, a stark reminder that corporate success often feels hollow. The day's events reverberated in his mind, meetings that prioritized dollars over decency, competitors crushed underfoot, and a growing sense of despair behind his polished facade. Yet, nothing could sharper his focus than the faint sound of sobbing echoing from the basement. His brow furrowed as he followed the sound, each step thick with curiosity and a smidge of annoyance. Was this really the moment to deal with a crying child? He cupped his hand around the banister, hesitating at the top of the stairs. The weight of an impending realization loomed. Was this what his life had become? Wealth had insulated him from the world outside, a projected strength that felt increasingly flimsy. Raiding the basement's darkness, he found Maria, the maid's daughter, curled on the floor, tears streaming down her cheeks as she clutched a broken doll. That flicker of annoyance twisted into something more disconcerting. Wasn't his job to fill orders, not mend broken toys? Yet, as he knelt beside her, memories of his late father's lessons gnawed at him. Kindness, hard work, the undeniable importance of connection, the teachings that shaped him were now at odds with his relentless ambition. Here was fear incarnate, a mirror reflecting insecurities he dared not acknowledge. The contrast between her frail frame and his corporate empire exposed a discomforting truth, intertwining wealth with the weight of social responsibility. In that moment, Mike felt the tension knotting in his shoulders. Could he really afford to let his meticulously maintained image slip into something less successful? Yet, there was a warmth blooming within him, reminiscent of the laughter shared while repairing toys with his siblings long ago. As he lifted the doll, the fractured porcelain seemed to symbolize the fragility of this world. He had constructed a house filled with emptiness, juxtaposed against Maria's heartache. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As weeks turned into a cycle of urgent growth, he poured himself into building a mentoring program for underprivileged children, ignited by Maria's silent inspiration. Yet, that gnawing feeling returned with a vengeance. Was this path an escape, or a gamble that could cost him everything he had achieved in the cutthroat world of business? The whispers of doubt echoed in his mind, paralyzing him. Skeptical gazes from peers and harsh critiques from his own family started to mount. Would this pursuit drown the very ambition that fueled his success? Standing in the familiar basement where it all began, Maria at his side, her glistening eyes filled with a hope he hadn't seen in a long time, Mike felt the weight of his decision looming larger than ever. Was he ready to truly shift the course of his life, or was he tiptoeing close to losing everything that once defined him? As he looked at Maria, that innocent face now a symbol of potential, the doubts loomed like shadows in the corners of his mind. Would he forge ahead or retreat into the safety of his former corporate glory? Days melted into nights as Mike wrestled with the dualities of his new undertaking. Each morning began with a sense of purpose tethered to an undercurrent of anxiety. The mentoring program had transformed mere ideals into tangible tasks, but the implications weighed heavily on him. Each decision felt like a bandwidth contraction. His commitments as a CEO tugged at his focus with a suffocating grip, making the initiative feel less like a passion and more like another corporate project. He mulled over funding, structure, and outreach while hundreds of employee emails piled in his inbox, their urgency a cacophony drowning the quieter call of his newfound mission. Maria was his touchstone, her beaming smile an unanticipated source of motivation. Yet, seeing her light up whenever they worked together stirred a bittersweet reminder of his own childhood, a time when ambition and joy were not battling forces but companions. In stark contrast, Maria represented a future that he had been blind to, one where success didn't solely measure profit margins but also happiness and connection. Consequently, he began carving out time from his hectic schedule, albeit reluctantly. The first session of mentoring felt surreal. As the kids gathered, shifts in his perspective began to unfold. Their innocent curiosity shattered the isolating bubble of the boardroom, adapting his language, thoughts, and intentions towards something far more meaningful. He discovered that listening was an active art form, one he neglected amidst the pressures of competition. Yet, the whispers of doubt returned, sharper this time. After a flurry of initial successes, social media buzz, positive press, came harsh criticism from his corporate peers. "Mike, are you really spending time with children instead of expanding our brand?" One executive had sneered during a conference call. "What's next? Charity galas?" That echo lodged in the back of his mind, forcing him to reevaluate whether he was merely indulging in altruism to abscond from his executive responsibilities. He paced his office, gripping the edge of his desk, the familiar rhythm of power and control clashing with an evolving identity. Should success to him be redefined, or was he merely abandoning opportunities for legacy for ephemeral feel-good moments? The inner battle raged, further complicated by hints from his family that leaned on traditional values of success, wealth, status, achievement, all of which he had diligently built but were now festering under the scrutiny of his choices. The weight of these judgments felt suffocating, yet when he returned to the basement with Maria after school one day, everything shifted again. Her enthusiasm captivated him anew as she shared each child's aspirations, dreams growing as vibrant as her laughter. It reawakened his own spirit, the ambition to ignite their futures overshadowing the fear of mockery from his corporate path. Could he channel the power of his business acumen into crafting opportunity instead of just capital? As the weeks went on, each session with the children invited a multitude of reflections: his management style, his resolute focus on profitability, and they prodded a crucial question: was he ready to risk the relentless pursuit of success for something wildly more profound? He prepared for a major presentation where he intended to articulate the program's success. Standing before influential stakeholders, could he rally support for causes beyond mere metrics? The threshold loomed. Striding into the boardroom meant revealing a new part of himself. Confidence intertwined with trepidation, the fear of reprisal danced alongside the thrill of revelations he uncovered within. The moment arrived when he finally had to confront the board with his ideas, not just on the program, but on what business could mean to him and to the world at large. Would this act of vulnerability fortify or unravel his carefully constructed identity? With his hands sweating and his heart racing, Mike took a deep breath as he stepped forward to present, forcing him to challenge everything he believed about ambition, success, and ultimately, himself. The air hummed within the boardroom, a mix of polished wood and tense expectations. Mike stood at the head of the long, glimmering table, each chair filled with faces that had often felt like they outranked his own. He gripped the presentation remote, battling the sweat pooling in his palms. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady but quieter than he intended. As he clicked through slides featuring gleaming graphs and conflict-free statistics, he felt the weight of doubt crushing his throat. He was prepared to discuss profits, growth metrics, the quarterly strategy, but he needed to veer towards the essence of what mattered, what the mentoring program represented. Genuine connection. He cleared his throat, an almost involuntary action, revealing a different kind of imperative at stake. "I want to share a different performance metric today. One that doesn't appear on our balance sheets." The murmurs paused, eyebrows furrowing in mild disbelief. "Last semester, we had 30 children participating in our mentoring program," he continued, trying to seize their attention. "Each of their names, stories, and dreams intertwined with everything we do as a corporation." His thoughts drifted back to Maria's eyes alight with hope, recalling her enthusiasm when she shared the children's dreams. For a moment, he didn't see the cold boardroom but rather the colorful chaos of children laughing and shooting ideas into the air like kites. He pressed on, declaring the very aspirations of those kids as living extensions of the company's mission. "Let us talk about a child named Jason. He dreams of becoming an engineer. He has shown incredible problem-solving skills during our sessions. His story isn't just beneficial for my soul, it resonates with our own goal to push boundaries in technology." A faint smile tugged at Mike's lips, the edges of nervousness softening as he painted a tapestry of potential. Choice words fell from his lips with conviction now rather than uncertainty. Others were starting to lean in, curiosity piqued. Yet, one voice cut through the rising enthusiasm. "Mike, this is heartwarming, but at what cost? We need results, not narratives." It was Barry, his sharp rebuttal keen as a blade. As the familiar weight of intimidation settled back over him, Mike remained quiet, wrestling with the static buzzing inside his head. The tension pulsed like a living organism, and for a heartbeat, he questioned his decision to take this path. Was this a moment of vulnerability or a miscalculation on his part? Steeling himself, he forged ahead. What if I told you investing in these kids opens untapped markets? The passion for engineering nurtured today will arguably provide us with innovative thinkers tomorrow. The wealth won't solely come from those in boardrooms, but from the imagined futures in classrooms. A small shift occurred in the room, a collective glance exchanged among members. Had he unsettled them enough to hear the weight of his words? His heart thundered as he faced the grilling dynamics of traditional reasoning clashing against his redefining vision. "Mike," another voice chimed in, challenging, yet intrigued. "What are the stakes for you, personally? Are you placing the future of the company on the shoulders of children?" In an instant, the question became a mirror. He understood then he wasn't just addressing the board, he was standing before the version of himself he'd long ignored. "I am asking us to redefine our understanding of success. For me, personally, it's about creating possibilities and nurturing connections with hope, not just for the children, but within ourselves." That revelation rang heavy in the air. His voice wavered with the weight of authenticity, forcing him to confront the passionate uncertainty simmering within. Had he finally uncovered the essence of his discontent? The tension melted into something more profound. He was no longer asking for their approval, he was inviting them into a dialogue. "Will you join me?" he posed, igniting a tentative spark. Could this be the moment where everything shifted? But just as hope began to prick at the edges of his nervous anticipation, the meeting abruptly shifted focus, using his insights as ammunition instead. As the boardroom turned hostile, Mike realized he was still grappling with the core choice: could he withstand the opposition and ignite change, or would he revert to the safety of corporate indifference? The stakes soared, propelling him toward a decisive confrontation. What emerged next could either fortify or dismantle everything he fought to become. The boardroom's atmosphere thickened with a tension that felt almost palpable, creating an oppressive silence following Mike's last statement. He found himself staring into the indifferent faces of his colleagues, their expressions a cocktail of skepticism and mild disdain. The words he had chosen seemed to hang in midair, losing their potency under the weight of their disbelief. A desperate self-reflection began swirling in Mike's mind. Had he overstepped? Was he truly ready to subvert the corporate narrative that had defined his career? He felt an itch in his fingers, an urge to retreat to numbers and spreadsheets, where certainty thrived. Yet, with each heartbeat, he was forced to confront a growing realization. This was the moment for metamorphosis, not only for the children he spoke of but for himself. As he glanced around the table, an unexpected ally emerged in Rebecca, an executive known for her sharp intuition. "I see what Mike is trying to say," she interrupted, her voice cutting through the hostility. "Perhaps we could integrate his ideas within a business framework." Her words punctured the tension, reframing the conversation beyond mere metrics. Mike seized the opportunity. "Exactly. The mentoring program can be viewed through a dual lens, recognizing our corporate responsibility while also fostering future talent. Investing in these children increases our innovative capacity, which translates to profitability." The fire in his belly grew stronger, propelling him forward as he made eye contact with Rebecca, silently thanking her for her support. However, Barry was relentless. "Let us not forget, this isn't charity. What specific metrics do you propose to track? Without measurable outcomes, you are advocating for a distraction, not a business model." With his heart racing, Mike took a deep breath. Here was the moment that could define his leadership. What if we could quantify these impacts? We could create a longitudinal study monitoring the progress of these children and their later contributions to fields like engineering and technology. Connect their trajectories back to the workforce. Such a proposition spun through the room, each member digesting the potential duality of outcomes. He noticed slight shifts in body language, signs of interest where there had only been skepticism. Perhaps this was not just a battle for the mentoring program, but a chance to embody the visionary he had always aspired to be. Yet, a question loomed in the recesses of his mind. Was he willing to stake not just company profits, but his own reputation on this uncharted path? He recalled the face of Jason, whose hopes flickered like a candle before him, bright but fragile. This was about more than business, this was about legacy. "I understand the risk you're all concerned about," he articulated, allowing the gravity of his words to settle. "But hiding behind traditional metrics limits us. It stifles the kind of growth that could redefine not just our bottom line, but who we are as a company." The room was silent, tension coiling around every moment of consideration. Doubt seeped into the margins of his thoughts, spiraling into what-ifs. Perhaps he was wrong. Maybe they wouldn't see the value. But in that moment of vulnerability, fueled by a newfound resolve, he felt himself expunging any traces of nihilism. Mike stood firm, a silent declaration coursing through him. He wouldn't cower under Barry's veiled threats nor retreat into the safety of conformity. He would lead this charge into the unknown. "Let us consider reconvening next week with concrete plans," Rebecca suggested, a delicate urgency flavoring her tone. Mike felt the fragile sliver of hope burst into a blaze, a step towards a potential opening, a redirecting dialogue. As he watched their expressions transform, Mike understood that this battle was not just tactical but personal. This was about crafting a narrative for himself, one that spurred connection and reinvigorated his sense of purpose. But as the meeting adjourned and the air began to clear, Mike's heart raced with an intimate fear. What if there was pushback? What if he lost this critical battle for a cause he believed in? The larger war was just beginning, and clarity mingled with doubt. He stepped out of the boardroom, determination fueling his resolve, yet aware that he couldn't afford complacency. The real challenge awaited. How far was he willing to go to ensure these visions materialized? Could he hold on to hope when faced with relentless opposition? With these questions lingering in his mind, Mike knew one thing: the next encounter could either spark a revolution in corporate culture or plunge him back into the depths of anonymity. As he glanced at his phone to review notes for the follow-up meeting, he noticed an incoming message: details about a company initiative that could potentially weaken his stance. The encroaching darkness threatened his journey to change everything he believed in. Mike leaned against the wall outside the boardroom, his fingers tapping nervously against his mobile device. The message he just opened made his gut clench. A new corporate initiative aimed at diversifying investment portfolios had the potential to siphon funds away from the very program he hoped to establish. The timing felt like a personal affront, snatching away the momentum he had fought so hard to gain. He could almost hear Barry's sardonic tone echoing in his mind: "Let us focus on what matters: profits, numbers, stability." The irony was not lost on Mike. He had been chasing stability his entire career, but now, amidst this turmoil, he sensed an uncomfortable awakening to a different kind of urgency. He paced down the corridor, hostile thoughts bubbling beneath his skin. Why had he ever thought he could make a difference? The echo of his own inadequacies blared in his ears as he recalled every moment of uncertainty in his past. Each misstep surfaced like a specter from a fearful memory: a pitch gone wrong, a deal fallen through, a hope lost. It was as if failure clung to him, whispering harsh truths and shrouding his ambitions in shadow. In the midst of these harsh reflections, he stumbled upon the break room, where employees gathered for a quick reprieve. The sight of them, engrossed in idle chatter over coffee, invoked a sudden resolve. They weren't just numbers, they were the lifeblood of the organization. Each one held a story, faces he had overlooked in his relentless pursuit of promotion and respect. Even Jason's face surfaced in his mind, reminding him why he started this fight in the first place. Maybe this corporate initiative wasn't the death knell for his vision, but an opportunity to reflect a larger reality, to appeal deeper into the core of their operations. Investors often yearned for companies that demonstrated social responsibility alongside profitability. Breath steadying, Mike came to a stark realization: he needed a strategy, not just for the mentoring program but for his newfound purpose. What if he framed this initiative as a mere diversion? Uniting the mentoring vision with the objective of diversification could become a rallying point. He envisioned a presentation where he could showcase potential statistics on positive outcomes from similar programs. highlighting how fostering young talent could align with long-term profitability might just catalyze the decision-makers he was faced with. Yet, the thought of Barry's skeptical glare, mocking his efforts, churned anew with every plan he tried to outline. With determination turning into a fire within him, Mike sought out Rebecca. If he was walking this uncertain path, he'd need allies. A formidable strategist, she possessed a keen insight that could help navigate the turbulent waters swirling around their upcoming proposals. "Can I go over some ideas with you?" he asked as he entered her office, finding her engaged in a conversation on the phone. She gestured for him to sit, motioning that she would be with him shortly. Moments passed, but when she finally hung up, her focus shifted fully to him, reading his expression. "You're looking more intense than usual. What's weighing on you?" The weight of his mission poured out in a rush as he outlined his fears, the encroaching initiative, and his vision for the mentoring program. "If we focus on quantifying our impact, perhaps we can reposition this diversification plan to actually highlight our commitment to corporate responsibility," he concluded, his heart racing with the absoluteness of his words. Rebecca nodded slowly, clearly absorbing every detail. "That's an intriguing angle," she replied, her eyes narrowing in thought. "But you'll need hard evidence, specifically tailored to the interests of the board. Metrics they can understand." A surge of relief then followed uncertainty. There it was again, the challenge he craved yet feared. "Let's get to work," she stated, the resolve in her voice coaxing his own determination to surface. "We'll compile data, reaching out to existing programs to provide testimonials, and invest time into collecting metrics on engagement and success rates." As they dove into crafting their strategy, Mike felt the pulse of their ideas electrifying the air around them. He realized then that the seeds of transformation could still grow, even amidst potent adversity. The prospect of unearthing forgotten stories, even of his colleagues, offered a bridge to connect their corporate narrative to the broader, more human one he envisioned. However, he couldn't shake the bleak shadow of Barry's looming influence. This was not just a professional climb, it was personal now. The ghosts of failure could not anchor him, he had to rise above. With every intention focused on the coming discussions, Mike realized he was not just trying to change the company but evolving himself into a catalyst for change. Yet, questions remained. Would Rebecca's input be enough? Would Barry maneuver to undercut their efforts once more? As the day waned and the office began to quiet, Mike knew time was short. He gathered his notes, heart burdened yet oddly buoyant, ready for the next round the board meeting that would shape not only their initiatives but the entire trajectory of his personal journey. The stakes were higher than ever, the outcome uncertain. Would he grasp this chance, or would the encircling darkness claim him once and for all? The boardroom lights buzzed unforgivingly, casting sharp shadows against the sleek, polished table as Mike entered, his heart hammering in his chest. The atmosphere was suffocating, a tense barometer of unspoken judgments and expectations. He glanced around at familiar faces. Barry sat smugly at the head, arms crossed, an indefatigable bastion of traditionalism. Mike's resolve wavered, but the weight of his aspirations propelled him forward. "Good morning, everyone," he started, his voice steadier than he felt. The moment he spoke, the air shifted. Eyes turned toward him, each laden with scrutiny. He could almost feel Barry's disdain as he prepared to unveil his proposal. Yet, this wasn't merely about convincing them, it was about asserting his belief that change was imperative. He launched into his presentation, fingers subtly trembling as he gripped the remote to guide the slides. The initial display of his concept for the mentoring program flickered on screen, vibrant and engaging. "We stand at a pivotal juncture," he declared, projecting confidence he didn't fully possess. "Investors are increasingly prioritizing corporate responsibility alongside profitability. Our proposal can marry these two forces." He watched the board's expressions shift. Some seemed intrigued, others, less so. Barry raised an eyebrow, a flicker of skepticism igniting Mike's anxiety. Metrics and feedback from similar initiatives demonstrate their potential to foster talent while enhancing our public image, he continued, infusing urgency into his voice. "Let us not just adapt to changes in the market, let us pioneer an approach that positions us ahead of the curve." The room's silence was penetrating, each heartbeat seeming to echo louder than the last. He clicked to the next slide, showcasing potential success rates from various organizations that successfully implemented mentoring programs. Data from these case studies illustrates that investing in our employees leads to greater retention and satisfaction levels, ultimately translating to profit, he insisted, his voice rising as the momentum built. Yet, the momentary glimmer of engagement in their eyes faltered when they confronted the metrics linking mentorship to diversification. Barry interjected, his tone dripping with challenge. These numbers might appear compelling, Mike, but how do we reconcile this with the pressing need to diversify our investments? Are we merely playing upon trendy narratives to distract from sound financial practices? A wave of uncertainty crashed over Mike, but he steadied himself. The stakes were personal now, failure wasn't an option. I believe they can coexist, he countered, an appeal resonating within him. Fostering talent and broadening our investments can do more than synergize. It can amplify our brand image and engage our team, making us more adaptable to market fluctuations. A murmur rippled through the board as some exchanged concerned glances, weighing Mike's proposition against the conventional mindset. The longer he stood there, defending his vision, the more he understood the frustration regarding entrenched attitudes. He was confronting a deeply rooted apprehension toward innovation. It was not merely about numbers for them, it was about a way of life. And yet, he found a flicker of conviction igniting within him. You talk about profits, Barry, Mike said, his voice lowering in intensity to make the even sharper point. But true profitability doesn't merely arise from cold calculations. It's born from investing in people, building an organization that embodies resilience and adaptability through mentorship and support. Are we really prepared to sacrifice long-term growth for short-term stability? The boldness of his challenge hung in the air like smoke from sparking embers, awaiting ignition. Then, Rebecca jumped in, her usual tactical clarity bouncing off the growing tension. We can approach this diversification strategy as an integrated model, she proposed. We can enhance our workforce while diversifying our portfolio to reflect a commitment to future opportunities. This duality can be a tremendous selling point for investors looking beyond financial efficiency. Mike registered the board's reaction. Some leaned forward, their interest rekindled. Maybe they had found a crack in the armor of Barry's aversion. But then, the room shifted again as an unexpected voice chimed in. Nathan, the newest board member, interjected hesitantly, Isn't it possible we're risking too much by venturing outside our established foundations? I fear the implications of failure, not just in numbers but in reputation. His words carried weight, fueling the palpable tension. Mike's heart sank yet again. Was his vision for change crumbling beneath paralyzing fears masked as caution? Yet, a resolve solidified within him. Change inherently carries risk, he countered, his voice firm. But it's through embracing that risk we define our future. It's time for our decision-making to reflect not just what's currently valuable, but what will empower us to become leaders in our sector. The murmur of the board intensifying reflected shifting perceptions. Now was the moment to confront not just the board's apprehensions but his own. He would not let fear dictate his destiny any longer. The silence in the boardroom was deafening. In that charged atmosphere, Mike felt simultaneously exhilarated and vulnerable, like a tightrope walker strung between the ledges of doubt and potential. As he captured the board's shifting sentiments, the realization washed over him. This moment could redefine who he was not just professionally but personally. What will it be? Barry's voice sliced through the lingering tension, his authoritative tone reminiscent of a judge pronouncing verdicts. Are we really willing to gamble on a nurturing idea when our very financial foundation stands on shaky ground? His challenge echoed loudly, intensifying the pressure clinging to Mike's chest. It was no longer just Barry's voice he had to contend with, it was the chorus of skepticism that resonated within him. Mike clenched his fists beneath the table, grounding himself. Confidence surged in tandem with apprehension. He had embraced discomfort before, and this time would be no different. He reminded himself that innovation required risk and that sometimes those who dared to dream were met with fierce resistance. I'm not suggesting we abandon our foundations, he contended, directing his gaze toward the board. Rather, I'm advocating for evolution, melding our strengths with progressive strategies that will future-proof our company. Change can coexist with stability. In fact, it may enhance it. He scanned the room, seeking allies amid an otherwise indifferent crowd. Some faces appeared thoughtful, while others remained hardened by tradition. He turned to Rebecca, whose earlier support provided an anchor, but also sought Nathan's eyes. What if we approached this issue not as a risk, but as an opportunity for radical improvement? We've talked about profitability, he continued, fiddling with the remote just enough to reveal a trembling thumb. But let us not forget the human aspect of this endeavor. Our workforce deserves empowerment, mentorship, and opportunities to flourish. The culture we foster will reflect in our numbers, our creativity, and our gravitas in this market. There's a powerful story waiting to ignite here. Nathan seemed to waver, his earlier hesitance cracking. The younger board member was caught between his inclination for caution and the burgeoning excitement of new possibilities. Mike pressed on, shaping his words with care to resonate deeply. Let us not be the company that clings to what's familiar at the expense of what's possible. It would be a disservice to our employees, our investors, and, ultimately, ourselves. Barry's eyes narrowed, and Mike sensed the scrutiny intensifying. Keys to the castle symbolically dangled overhead. In this high-stakes arena, a moment of vulnerability remained. With every word, he stood on shaky ground, yet the enormity of the decision held a mirror to his own fears. He thought of every moment of uncertainty he had faced before, every fear he had attempted to bury. Isn't a time we confronted the fear of innovation? He challenged, daring to impale that nerve. He understood now that the very concept of mentorship metastasized beyond the parameters of the program he proposed. It was a mentorship rooted in belief of both others and himself. The air felt charged, the room a battleground for ideologies. Mike held his breath as the board deliberated. The tension hung thick, a palpable wave between reconciled fear and hopeful ambition. Somewhere in the recesses of his mind, a voice whispered that he, too, was embarking on a mentoring journey, one where both he and the board members could evolve beyond traditional confines. Just as Barry seemed poised to retort once more, the door swung open. A young girl peered inside, shifting shuffle from foot to foot, a broken toy clutched in her small hands. The sudden intrusion felt serendipitous, contrasting innocence against high-stakes deliberation. What is going on? Barry's disdain shifted towards distraction. Mike's heart raced at this unexpected moment, sensing an opportunity he hadn't anticipated. Could this child's dilemma serve as a catalyst not just for the board, but for his personal commitment to mentorship? I think it's time to redefine our priorities, he said. As he approached the girl, determination radiated through him, intertwining with the urgency of the moment. Let us see what we can collectively build instead of tear down. As he knelt before her, he felt the weight of his mission crystallizing a commitment to change that spanned both boardroom and life. The confrontation had morphed into clarity within him. Now the stakes were not limited to numbers or projections, but rather transforming lives, starting with his own. The ticking clock marked a new determination. Would the board recognize the goal of an empowered workforce as something far greater than just a financial metric? Would they support this fundamental shift, or retreat into the comfort of the familiar? He locked eyes with Barry again, ready to fight for the heart of his vision. With newfound certainty, Mike breathed in deeply. He was prepared to face the crucial moment that lay ahead, after all. Could he convince the board to embrace a journey not only for the company but for themselves? As Mike knelt before the girl, her tear-streaked face ignited an unexpected spark deep within him. This was more than a mere distraction. It became a lens through which he could see the broader implications of his proposed changes. He realized that the boardroom, with all its archaic obsessions with metrics and projections, often overlooked the very essence of what made a business thrive: the people. Can you tell me what happened? He asked gently, focusing entirely on her. The girl clutched the broken toy tighter, as if the world around her could crumble but this object remained her anchor. It just broke, she whimpered, her little voice quivering as she struggled to suppress the grief. I don't know how to fix it. In that moment, Mike understood the power of vulnerability. Here stood a child whose experience paralleled his mission. Both were grappling with frustration and a sense of failure. He sensed an urgency to cultivate an environment where others, like this girl, could instinctively seek help and support rather than feel isolated by their struggles. Rising to his feet, he turned back to the board, the moment crystallizing in his mind. This is what we risk losing if we stagnate. It's not just toys that break, it's spirits, creativity, and the heart of our workforce. Mentorship isn't just about guidance, it's about empowerment and connection. When we ensure our employees feel seen, they can produce unparalleled results. Mike's voice steadied, drawing clarity from the emotional turbulence. He knew he was pushing the boundaries of conventional corporate rhetoric, but deep down, he also recognized the truth resonating within him. There was an innate strength in nurturing relationships that could transform the corporate culture. Barry's gaze softened imperceptibly as he processed Mike's words. The challenge remained, but the discussion had subtly shifted. The room, once hostile, seemed open to a redefinition of significance, a concept larger than financial gain. Mouths that had previously pursed in skepticism now whispered among themselves. Do we really want to be the company that turns away those in need? Rebecca replied, her voice gaining momentum alongside Mike's shared fervor. If we foster resilience and growth, including for ourselves, we can lead in a way that sets us apart, not just in revenue but in our reputation. The energy in the room began to shift, a tapestry of tentative but hopeful realization weaving between the board members. They were moving away from habitual doubts and considering the potential for growth that came with embracing change. Nathan, slowly shifting in his seat, cast wary but curious glances at Mike. Had he been compelled to confront the risks of innovation too? The younger board member considered the impact of mentorship, not just as a tool for learning but as a transformative force within the organization. I see where you're headed with this, Nathan finally interjected. It's not solely about performance metrics. What if we transition our narrative to something that speaks to our workforce? A cohesive unit working towards a common vision? With every passing moment, Mike felt fortified. This wasn't merely a pitch anymore, it was a movement, a growth spurt for him and the board alike. Yet still, the looming presence of Barry cast a shadow. Talk is cheap, he bit back. How do we translate this emotional awakening into tangible results? That question struck a nerve inside Mike. It echoed his own internal reservations how to instill a cultural metamorphosis that could yield lasting impacts. He reflected on past doubts, faced enemies both internal and external, and found purpose in a newfound approach. I propose we create a pilot mentorship program, Mike said, equipped with a more concrete vision. A tangible, quantifiable project that pairs experienced employees with new hires. It's a celebration of growth, an investment in our culture that we can measure in retention and engagement. This model allows us to nurture the spirit we're discussing while also closely monitoring resulting metrics. Realization washed over him. He was no longer negotiating a fading vision of change. He was articulating practical steps that could bridge emotional appeal with measurable outcome. Amid the hubbub, the young girl stood quietly beside him, still clutching her broken toy. Mike turned, crouching once more to meet her gaze. I'm going to help you fix this, he assured her, embodying the very essence of his proposal. We're all works in progress. Sometimes, we just need the support to mend what's broken. With that, the atmosphere in the room transformed. Discussion joined speculation, and doubt began to dissipate. But just as optimism began to bloom, Barry's stern expression resurfaced, crackling in the air like a brewing storm. It's all nice and well, Mike, but this is just the beginning of a much larger conversation. The tension warred with the flicker of hopeful momentum. How would they balance newfound ideals with the daunting realities of corporate strategy? As the board erupted in conversation, Mike couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest decisions lay ahead. Would they wholly commit to the mentorship transformation, risking deeply ingrained traditions? Or would Barry's skepticism quash the movement before it even had a chance to take flight, leaving Mike wrestling once again with self-doubt? As he contemplated these looming questions, another realization struck. The path ahead demanded not only courage to articulate vision but also grit to navigate the foreseeable conflicts that lay in wait. The meeting buzzed with a newfound energy, yet Mike felt a weight settle in his chest. As he glanced around the room, faces sparkled with animated ideas, but he also sensed the underlying tension, a delicate balance between enthusiasm and doubt. He was at a precipice, wrestling with internal fears that clawed at his resolve. "Let us make this clear," Barry's voice rang out, slicing through the chatter like a knife. "We can't lose sight of our bottom line. You talk about mentorship, but what about profit?" Mike's mind raced. The explicit challenge painted his vision as naive, but he couldn't falter now. "Profits are derived from people who feel valued, Barry. Happy employees lead to satisfied customers. A mentorship program isn't just a nice idea, it's a calculated investment." The other board members whispered among themselves, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. For Mike, the stakes extended beyond profit margins. It was about instilling an ethos within the company that truly resonated. Would Barry and the others recognize the potential transformation? Or were they too entrenched in their metrics-driven mindset? Later that afternoon, Mike found himself standing before the glass walls of his office, overlooking the bustling city below. The sun cast a golden hue, blending with the reflections of his doubts, struggles, and aspirations. He'd managed to ignite a spark of change within the board, yet now he needed to sustain that fire. Mentorship, mentorship, he mumbled to himself. It was almost a mantra now, reflecting his conviction. Thoughts jumbled, each one weaving into how he might execute this grand vision. He recalled the broken toy, now lodged in his psyche like a trigger for personal connection. What if he reached out to a few employees, those who might be willing to take part in a pilot program? Direct engagement could present an opportunity not only to test the concept but to confront his own fears of failure head-on. He reached for his phone, mentally preparing a message to a few potential participants, outlining his vision and inviting their thoughts. Just as he hit send, a soft knock on the door jolted him from his reverie. It was Rebecca, her expression a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Hey, I didn't mean to interrupt," she said, stepping inside. "But I wanted to talk about what you presented today." Mike hesitated, unsure if he wanted to delve deeper into discussions. "What are your thoughts?" "I think it was powerful, honestly," she admitted, settling onto the edge of his desk. "But Barry's right. Change takes time and effort. Are you prepared for pushback?" The question resonated. For all his idealism, Mike realized the turbulence that often followed significant shifts. "It's one thing to inspire, it's another to implement," he replied, feeling the weight of reality. "What if they resist?" Rebecca crossed her arms, studying him. "Then you stand firm. You believe in this. We can't allow the idea of failure to derail us. If it takes time, we adapt the approach. It's growth like you said. It's about mending." Her words struck a chord. She was right, transformation would not be immediate. He would need patience to navigate the frustrations ahead, and most importantly, he needed to establish unwavering support within the team. "I appreciate that," Mike said, a spark of determination igniting within him. "I have to show them what's possible, not just tell them. It's investing in people today so they can lead tomorrow." As the conversation shifted, Mike felt fortified by the synergy between them. They began sketching ideas for team-building workshops, communication sessions, anything that could prime the atmosphere for his vision. The whispers of doubt stirred in the back of his mind, but he focused on the strength of their collective energy instead. Suddenly, a message pinged on his phone. It was Nathan, expressing interest in the mentorship idea. The ripple effect was beginning, and hope surged within him. Yet, with excitement came a chilling reminder: if the support shifted, the momentum could die in an instant. Would he be able to counter the potential disinterest and challenges that might arise? Would Barry and the skeptics become obstacles or negotiate a new path forward? With each question weighing heavily, Mike realized the real challenge lay in preparing to face the uncertain tides of corporate culture. The true test of his leadership would demand more than ideals. It would require fortitude, conviction, and the unwavering belief that nurturing relationships could indeed transform lives, both personal and professional. And with that realization, he turned back to his desk, readying himself for what came next. It was time to step into uncharted waters. The room hummed with a silent intensity as Mike Henderson delivered his final presentation, the culmination of weeks of battling his own doubts and the corporate establishment. As he stepped away from the podium, confidence surged through him. He had cracked open a pathway for change, one that intertwined mentoring with corporate objectives, a marriage he had once deemed impossible. "Let us redefine profit," he began, addressing the board one last time. "This isn't merely about dollars and cents, it's about human capital. An investment in mentorship can drive innovation and, eventually, the bottom line." He looked around the table, seeking to capture both the hearts and minds of his audience. For so long, they had functioned as mere figures. Perhaps today, they could realize their potential to be agents of change. The once skeptical murmurs spread like wildfire. A key board member, Rebecca, expressed her enthusiasm. "Imagine a culture where employees feel valued and empowered. This will not only boost morale but also enhance retention and ultimately our overall success." Her words transformed the ambience, igniting nods of agreement that felt like a victory. Yet the shadow of Barry loomed large. "But, Mike," he interjected, "how do we measure this success? We can't afford distractions from our key performance indicators." The challenge resonated within Mike. It was the question he had anticipated. With calculated calm, he replied, "What if we established metrics tied to employee satisfaction, retention rates, and the impact on productivity? We can show that investing in mentorship brings tangible results." The atmosphere shifted, an awakening taking root as the board members engaged more actively. They began discussing ideas on how to implement mentorship initiatives practically, setting measurable benchmarks to ensure accountability. With each positive response, Mike felt the weight of apprehension fading. He had grasped the essential truth: his narrative was no longer just pie-in-the-sky rhetoric, it was turning into actionable change, imbued with vitality and purpose. He was no longer the isolated corporate titan poring over financial spreadsheets but a leader fostering connections and empowering others. When the meeting wrapped up, a palpable sense of momentum lingered in the air. Mike's resolve solidified. He had wrestled with fear and emerged with concrete success, not just by maintaining status quo but by transforming perceptions. And in that victory, he recognized his own evolution. He was no longer confined by old definitions of success. Within weeks, as the mentorship program began to take shape, Mike saw the fruits of his labor manifest in profound ways. Not only did participants express increased job satisfaction, but stories of collaboration flourished. Employees were more willing to share ideas, and even Barry found himself grudgingly impressed with the spikes in productivity metrics. As he strolled through the office, he felt a growing connection with his team. Each smile from an employee resonated deeply. It was clear that he had fostered a culture that prioritized human elements alongside corporate ambition. Mike reveled in the collective energy. They thrived together at the intersection of productivity and personal upliftment. The most significant moment arrived during the program's first review meeting. As metrics were shared, Mike was acknowledged as the driving force behind these changes. A mere mention of his vision transitioned into a standing ovation among his peers. This external validation solidified his transformation. No longer a caricature of corporate success, he had redefined his legacy anchored in empathy, connection, and mutual growth. He caught sight of Maria's smile during a company-wide presentation about the mentorship program's achievements. She was a living testament to the potential he had unlocked not only in her life but in countless others. In that single glance, Mike saw the culmination of his journey. He had matured beyond ambition's brittle reaches, aligning his success with a broader purpose. The shadows of doubt had fallen away beneath the light of authentic engagement. Mike had achieved remarkable growth not simply in the context of business metrics but in his own heart. He had cultivated a legacy grounded in human connection, empathy, and the unwavering belief that true leadership flourished in nurturing others. As the realities of this transformation crystallized within him, Mike resolved to keep forging ahead. He knew that the journey was not over, the challenges would persist. But with a solid confidence and recognized competence, he felt ready to continue navigating uncharted waters, always seeking to lift others as he climbed truly the mark of an inspiring leader. This is the moment to shift your perception of success. Have you experienced a transformation like Mike's in your life or career? Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that drive change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support this journey of individual growth. You need to show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about Mike's journey. What did you think of his transformation? Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and spark their own journey of overcoming and embracing change. Don't wait even one more second to share.